Okay. Well, good afternoon, good evening. I think we can get started. Start talking to people coming in. So thanks you all for coming out this evening to visit. I want to first of all thank BioStrategy partners for agreeing to co-host this event and to put this panel discussion together for us this evening to talk about, well, the secrets of life sciences here in the suburbs. So many of you perhaps have come out of the city. And there's a lot of action there, but we want to prove that there's things going on out here too that will contribute broadly to what we all hope continues to advance the region, the Philadelphia region, in becoming one of the top 5 life science hubs in the United States. There's no reason that shouldn't happen. My name is Eric Reeders. This project here is my fault, I suppose, or later on I'll tell you if it works out as well as I hope it does, that I'll take a little bit more of the responsibility for it. But I also want to thank our partners at Shear Associates who are representing the spaces here, and Norwood is the design build firm that, among other things, made sure that it looked as beautiful as it does today for you guys to come in. But I think without further ado, I will get out of the way and introduce the panel here, or actually I'll ask them to introduce themselves since they'll do a better job. But Jeff will be moderating, and I'm excited to hear what they have to say. I've seen the agenda, so I think you'll find it very stimulating. There will be a Q&A session after about half an hour or so. I'm not setting a timer, but I think they'll have plenty to say. But if you have questions, I don't think they'll mind if you, even during the presentation, ask those questions. So thank you, and thank you.
Thanks, Eric, and great space, and great to be here. I'm glad everybody could come today. Just as we're going to go down and just introduce ourselves real quick. I'm Jeff Snellenberg. I wear a couple different hats. I run the Pennsylvania Angel Network, which is a network of, we have about 16 angel groups in Pennsylvania and surrounding areas. They get together via Zoom now, monthly, as well as in person when we can. So we try and work on the angel ecosystem to try and make it easier when companies come in to fund, that we could know what's going on and hear about different deals from different areas, as well as when we're investing, hopefully do a better job of investing in the companies, hopefully raising more funds for companies and so forth when we go through that process. So you're not dealing with each individual angel group and so forth. Along with that, I do belong to an angel group out in we're in Warrington area. We call it DeWillstown when we do our marketing. It's more people know that, which is Delaware Crossing. We also have a location do some of our meetings in Princeton as well, so we have a Jersey part as well. Yeah, so we do early stage investing, usually in deals that are $1.5 million or less. And we usually co-invest with others, so we're not putting in $1.5 million ourselves. Usually it's around 100 to 250 is usually our portion, and can go up with follow-on investments and so forth. And then the third hat that I wear, which is relevant to this, is that I also run a small institutional angel funds, which are Mid-Atlantic Angel Group funds, which are out of Philadelphia. We have some shared space with Ben Franklin Technology Partners. And we're actually trying to wrap that up. So we're not investing any at this point. We're looking for our last couple exits out of that, and hopefully can close down the fund. So those are a couple of relevant subjects for this. So Scott, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Eric. Beautiful space. We got to see it when it was just a teardown. It was lovely. So thank you. I'm Scott Desane. I'm an MD PhD oncologist. I work at Lancaster Super Medical Research. I founded 2 companies in the suburbs, actually. One was Immunome. That's out in Exton now, and it's going off reasonably well. And then another one with COO Tom Halpern called Occam's Bio, which is a next generation spin-out technology. Basically, sort of facilitating AI discovery, which we actually sell as a service to customers, but we're building our own first human cruelty-free nanobody platform using our screening and AI technology for in-house discovery. So that's our business model. And we started with this guy, and then we moved to Malvern, and now we're building some new spots out in 3700 Horizon Drive. So we're suburban people.
Thanks again, Eric. I don't know where Eric went.
I'm right here.
Oh, right there. Last night I was here studying most of my time, so I'm very tired. Yeah, okay, right in front of me. A lot of friendly faces here, so hi everybody. Lucas, I'm the Chief Executive Officer, and I'm also very competitive. So you had 3 hats, I'm going to get 5. Our parent nonprofit is the Hepatitis B Foundation. That's a public policy advocacy organization, very impactful. Over 300 million people have hepatitis B in the world. We're there to advocate, help raise funding so we can cure it. And we really bat above our weight compared to other nonprofits. The Bloomberg Institute is the second one. It's a research arm. It's our largest. We have about 75 employees, and it's to cure liver cancer and hepatitis B. The third nonprofit in that is the Pennsylvania Biotechnology Center. That is a life sciences incubator. I have to give Tim Block a lot of credit for being not just a scientist, but an entrepreneur and being the founder of all our organizations. The Pennsylvania Biotech Center is the home for the Hepatitis B Foundation and the Bloomberg Institute, and everything that we do is to support the mission. So the fourth hat is the Hatch Bio Fund. So back in 2018, I was in the incubator business about 4 years, and I know Melina's here, and she could probably share some of the war stories we hear. We need funding. So the idea was, walking my dog one night, if I had $5 million, what would I do with it? And I'm thinking, I would bet on Formetric, Arbutus, other things went public, what else? And came back, talked to Dr. Block, and it's like, you got to workshop this. So after about a year of going to San Francisco, Boston, New York, we created the Hatch Bio Fund, which is a $50 million VC fund to help the greater Philadelphia area companies. We raised 30 so far. 10 of it is from a Japanese pharma company, Daiichi Pharma, very strong in oncology. I think they're ranked second in the world. And then we have partners for my fifth hat, Brandywine Realty Trust, which is located in Philadelphia. We wanted to replicate the model. Dr. Block is a genius, but I don't think I could have ever pulled him out of the Pennsylvania Biotechnology Center. He's been to 2 incubators, and that would be the Pennsylvania Biotechnology Center and B-Labs. So when I started my career, just for a minute here, I was in behavioral health. So I did that for 22 years. I made the switch in 2014. When you start a new career, what do? You go and visit other incubators. So I must have I've been to over 70 so far, but by going out and doing that experiment, I saw what BioStrategy do. I saw what Innovations. I went to Alexandria in South San Francisco. I went up to Cambridge. I saw Campbell Square. I started to come back and say, that's what they're doing. This is what we're doing. Why are we different? What's going on over here? What in the East Coast, West Coast, it's different. They have warehouses, a lot of benches on the West Coast. The East Coast seems to be cookie cutter. And what I tried to do is, create what we were doing in an 8 to 9 ingredient platform. And that's really what it was. It was connecting all these dots. So with that, we replicated B-Labs last year. And it's at full capacity. We partner with Brandywine Realty Trust, and that's a life sciences incubator, 15 companies. And these are companies that are from all over the country, 43% of them. Our goal is over the next few years that we're going to go national, and we're already have some interest potentially in Maryland, Charleston, South Carolina, and Los Angeles. Those are my 5 hats.
And you got 6 or not? Good.
Next year.
Great. Well, welcome everybody. So we'll jump into it. I mean, you just mentioned a bunch of resources in the suburbs, which you kind of lead. Let's dive into that a little bit, and what are some of the other resources, or maybe some of the resources that we just talked about for the startups and entrepreneurs and so forth in the suburbs?
Yeah, I think a big advantage we have, especially in Doylestown, is within 100 miles is about 80% of all U.S. pharma. So the pharma belt goes from North New Jersey all the way down, some would argue, into Delaware. And within that, I would say is probably the most scientific talent and knowledge in the world, and I think even more so than the West Coast, which has a lot of IT. South San Francisco is a great cluster. We know what's going on in Cambridge, but when you really think about it, if you live in Bucks, Montgomery County, and if you go into North New Jersey, almost every neighbor or someone you know is either a scientist, they're a salesperson, they work in pharma, And these people in pharma, and I've been out to Eli Lilly and J&J, whenever I walk through the hallways, they know who I am and they're like, come over here, I have an idea. This is something, they don't want me to do it here, or I haven't told them about it, but I want to spit it out. So we have a lot of that in Doylestown. We have a lot of industry experience. And I think number one, when you do a spin out and when we look at our incubator, it's all about know-how and it's about speed to market. You need to have that knowledge. You need to have, a process to help these young infant companies get to commercialization. And that's, that takes capital. That takes the commercialization, the business side. Where do all the pharma CEOs live? Where do they live, Tim?
Bucks County.
Yes.
To avoid the graduated income tax, it's 10% New Jersey for 1 5 year.
So just, a few names. Alex Gorski, Buckingham, goes to your gym, right? Ken Frazier, who just retired from Merck, is in Upper Makefield. Just on my board, we have Wayne Yetter, he was the CEO of Novartis, Astra Merck, EVP of Merck, Tony Ford Hutchinson. All this talent is right in our backyard. So, just to kind of set the table and talk about resources, that's what makes Bucks, Montgomery County, Northern New Jersey, I think, very special and different. But what we try to do at the incubator is, have all these services at the arm's length of the companies, so they don't have to go looking for the CRO, an IP attorney, a fundraising mechanism. We write SBIR grants for them. We help take care of their integration. Let the scientists focus on the science. And then when it gets to the part where they really need to, go to that next level with the FDA, come into our office and we have consultants for you, we have IND people for you, and we'll help kind of smooth that process. And the last thing I'll say is the statistic, some people in this room will probably heard me say way too much, is that the national average for an early stage company to have success is 7.5 years. And that's rare because 1 in 20 are successful. And that means acquisition, IPO, revenue generating. We had an independent study done in 2019 by Century Consulting. It's 3.5 to 4 years at the PABC. So I do think that's proof that what's going on with that model is helping get things quicker and accelerating.
Scott, you want to talk a little bit about from maybe the company, the entrepreneur side, some of the benefits?
Yeah, I mean, we had the privilege of being at PA Biotech for a while, and we are talking about great infrastructure. And I think a lot of the companies at PA Bio are actually small molecule companies.
It's about 60%.
Along the traditional lines, and I think that's really valuable. It's great to have all that infrastructure. But I also think that biology is evolving. Even the industry within Philadelphia, Silicon therapy or something. But we really are evolving as a community that knows how to handle primary cells and make value from that. They're manipulated as immunotherapies. We clone antibodies from them, and that requires a different set of skills. A different set of administrative skills and a different set of laboratory skills. And we got to get those people out here too. Sort of an evolution of how the science is going. And we really like to see the infrastructure relate to the cell-based therapy. So we were looking for a lot of real estate, and you just don't see the real estate that's 50% hoods. A lot of new biology is that. So we're evolving slowly, and we had help with Shear Partners finding a really nice space. But I think that's part of the evolution. We need to be nimble in terms of that. But every time someone talks about an ability to help you writing grants, legal, getting the KISS funding, that is immeasurably important. And so one of the other things is that Doylestown's far. The only place that's not far from is Doylestown. But it was worth it for me and Rhonda to drive for an hour to go there to get started. But we do need to think about this as an infrastructure. So when you guys invest, you're investing not just in the company, but you're investing in their collaborators. You're investing in the likelihood they'll be able to find people that know how to handle cells, right? And you're also investing in a community that is connected to the next level, to the VCs. There needs to be a place for you to sell your investment to. And so I think we're evolving in that direction. So I guess that's what I'm saying, is that we need to keep evolving the scientific model. And there have been some tremendous successes. I hope you like Spark and the virus and all this. This will pour back energy into the investment thesis. We really need to metastasize your business model a little bit. Because we're in Malvern, we need to, every time you help someone like that, you help the community. And it's going to feed back.
And I think, our model is very specific and it works for some companies. BioLabs has a model that, there's similarities, there's a lot of similarities between incubators, and some of us do things a little bit different, have strengths. Pennovations has great science, and we've got just amazing, talented incubator people in the city and in the region. And I think we all basically get along pretty well too. I mean, we look at the, on the level that if we all do well, we have the infrastructure in Greater Philadelphia, everybody's going to have, going to be well, going to be full capacity. But, the one thing I want to bring up about the model too is that we don't kick companies out. And again, I think it goes back to that know-how. Do you guys hold on the companies?
We typically have a finite life cycle. We'll generally not put them on the street, but
Yeah.
we're not meant to be a forever home, for sure.
Exactly, and that's what I mean. Like that's a big difference. I think I think J Labs is the same way. But outside of that, I don't know too many other incubators in the country where we kind of want the companies to stay there until they either IPO and they really don't co-collaborate. And that's the key, is the co-collaboration. I think you saw that in Doylestown. Is you can go down the hallway, and that's what we all want to create. You can bounce ideas off of people, and that accelerates things too.
So we're talking about some of the positive aspects. What are some of the challenges? Why come to the suburbs versus staying in the city? Like what's people always seem to say, oh, let's stay in the city and different space and easier to maybe access to things and so forth. But why, what are some of the other negatives? What are some of the other challenges that you guys?
I mean, you're making.
You've had a couple companies now in the suburbs, so.
Yeah, I mean, you're actually making a change. You're betting that the money you save on not spending on, the downtown rent will be made up for the fact that you can't get the same people. I mean, one of the best people I've ever worked with, went to for a while, but he said, I can't be this far away. And I actually tried to hire him into Occam. They said, we're in Mallory. I said, I'm not going to Mallory. He said, there's a train. I said, a train doesn't go where you need to go. You're still 2 miles away. So there's a young, dynamic, brilliant, cell culture and immunology-based cohort of people that won't leave downtown. So the types of stuff that we do, it's not a good fit for people that have just been cultured to ourselves. So there's a lot of training. So we have to have sort of a build them up. Grab talent, grab and nurture talent rather than expect to be able to just hire someone because the people aren't there.
So you pay more in salary if you can get them to come versus?
No, it's a different population. What you need to do is sort of find the diamonds in the rough, and then you need to maybe recruit from far, and then find people that you feel have the personality and the capabilities of doing that kind of work, and then you train them.
It's like, it's been an experiment with B Labs. What Scott's saying is 100% right. Doylestown has more, I would say, mature industry experience CEOs doing small molecule. We have some diagnostics and vet devices. And then when we opened up B Labs, we didn't know what we would expect. And we opened up at the right time where we had Jeff Tavano from Brandon Wenders, the exact number of hundreds of companies' interest. And 43% of the companies at B Labs were from outside of Philadelphia. And what we noticed over the first couple months was it was a lot of academic technology, younger population, 75% of it's cell and gene therapy. And I kind of still have a problem of trying to leverage the 2 locations because in the city, we can hire workers in 2 seconds. They're everywhere. We can't do that in Doylestown. I mean, we have labs right now that are dying for help. It's really a problem. But in the suburbs, I can throw a rock and hit a C-suite person. I can get somebody, very quickly. So it's almost like the opposites in 2 different demographics. And I've been saying there's 30 miles between Doylestown and the Sears Center, like 300 miles. So we're trying to work together to try to get more events together and cross-pollinate because that was really the goal of opening up another incubator was, hey, that's just going to be more bandwidth, more experience. But even the equipment is completely different. It's probably the same with, we have more flow cytometry, CRISPRs. That's not happening in Doylestown.
Well, I have a question, actually. Do you find it a challenge to find C-suite people good enough for the companies that are starting? Because that's been a problem historically.
So we have a C-suite list we call instant CEOs where they have experience. They may have been in 1 or 2 companies. I wouldn't call them your rock star pharma CEOs at that point, where they help get the company off the ground, help with the business plan, help with the market analysis, get the slides, get them in front of the right people. At some point, you're going to need the heavyweight CEO, I'll say, who's commercialized and who's done it. And we'll either do a consultation, they'll come on board, a board seat, or there's been a few occasions they'll jump in the driver's seat and they'll take over the company. So that there's fewer of them, but the next level, we've got quite a bit out in the suburbs.
And people pitching you, are the CEOs up to stuff?
Still early, so it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell.
I think we might have had a little fallow period where people kind of lost their sea legs a little bit. With COVID slowing things down, I mean, there are a lot of IPOs for a while, but now we're basically at ground zero again, and we have all this energy, there's money on the sidelines, there's a lot of great ideas. And we sort of have to get in the rhythm again. I mean, I haven't been in a room with this many biotech innovators, and I was at Bio, but I mean, it's locally, it's new. I mean, it's kind of nice to see people that I've known for years, but haven't seen.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But the IPO thing, I don't know if anyone saw JLL's report today. It came out kind of their State of the Union, and it was really interesting, the one statistic. I think the last 10 years combined on average was with 70 IPOs in biotech every year. Last year, there was 28. And out of those 28, only 10 raised over $100 million. So that to me was like a really eye-opening statistic. The good part of it, I think I was talking to someone before I walked in here, there's lights on the horizon. Like I think we've kind of plateaued, but in the JLL report, they said they studied, they're calling this a biotech recession. I don't know, maybe a little too extreme. I mean, there's good companies out there, there's money being raised, but after every one of these biotech recessions has been a huge upswing, like almost a 21 level. So there's some hope in it. Now the question is, and you may have a better response, is it 6 months, is it 9 months, is it a year? That's it. I'm not going on record.
I'll sit there and say from the early stage investment side, deals are still getting done. Early stage deals, there's a lot more follow-ons from existing portfolio companies, but there are some new companies that are getting done. There is more people on the sidelines than investing. But I'll sit there and say that there's still a lot of capital out there, and there's new angels or venture funds and so forth coming into play, and they're eager to try and find those good companies. So it's a process, though. It's a process.
I mean, what I'm seeing the trend in Doylestown, we just haven't happened down in the B-Labs too, is the reverse IPO. Like it seems like, I think we've had 2 last year, 1 down in B-Labs, and there's money in these companies and their technology may not be advancing, but they may have $20 to $50 million. And what they're doing for is another technology to maybe add value or to bring in another CEO or something. But are you seeing more of that too? Or, I mean, I think that rather than going IPO, it's doing a merger or reverse IPO. It's become very popular.
I mean, the IPO market isn't there. There's been a couple the last couple of days, and more on the tech side, but not on the life science side. So I can't answer when that's going to be. But hopefully it'll open up a little bit, and hopefully some resources will be opening up for the early stage community as well as the IPO market, because I think it's, we need those resources as well. So because once the IPOs, then hopefully that funnels back into the early stage community as well.
I think one of the things that we're talking about here is, when we're moving a company to the suburb, trying to actually make an efficient operation, efficient use of resources. Fundamentally, it's about you, because we need to make sure that the angel community is self-sustaining, and that the angel community is honored, and that we efficiently spend their money. And so the more careful we spend angel money as a community, the more likely there will be more money, and the more likely we'll create more value, which will lead to the IPO and the VC investment that they need. I mean, this is the pump. I mean, angel investments is the pump. We get an SBIR grant that puts us over the moon, but that takes a long time. And so we have to remember that the ecosystem really must nurture the investment community, because without that, nothing happens. And I think that's what a lot about being in the suburbs is for, so that we can more efficiently mobilize capital. And maybe we don't have the very best rock star or postdoc from UPenn or Jefferson or something like that. But we create value steadily and slowly and with effort and with building human capital at the same time we innovate. So that has to be central to all of what we do. Otherwise, these spaces are empty. Otherwise, we go out of business. It primes the pump and it keeps us going.
And from we can go into this a little bit, and from the early stage community, I don't look at a company from Center City or differently than I would look at one from Doylestown. We might look at it differently, but it's not like, oh, we're not going to invest because it's in Doylestown versus the city. It's more about the technology. It's more about the people. It's more about what the growth is going to be, or what the potential outcome, or even what they're working on. And we feel that with building those resources and being part of the ecosystem, that at some point that you're going to be able to get the resources that you need, whether it's that technology person or C-suite or whatever it may be. And if you need to open up an office in the city or you need to open up an office somewhere else, and that's part of the process. But where is it originally? It's not really relevant to us. We don't really, we don't say, hey, we're just going to look at companies that are in the center city or in New York City or in the larger places. We look at where the good technology is and where the good opportunities are. So, but I will sit there and say it is about networking. It's about building those relationships with the if you're in an incubator, with the incubators, and going to the programs that they put on, whether it's here or elsewhere, and getting to know the angel groups or the resources that they have, whether it's banks, whether it's angels, whether it's venture, whether it's grants or whatever it may be. But those are the resources that you're going to need as you're going through it. And just because you have a good technology, that doesn't mean that people are just going to come. Like it's hard. It's part of the process. And I don't envy startups in doing the fundraising process. It stinks. It's hard. It's not easy. You're going to get more no's than you are going to get yeses. And it might not be the resource that you think it's going to be when you started of where you're going to be at the end. And it's hard. It's really hard. And we probably invest in 1% to 2% of companies that come through the process. That's not really great odds, right? And out of, we might look at 10% or something like that, maybe 15%, but actually invest. It's 1% to 2% of the companies that actually come through. So there's a big funnel there. So you have to have your ducks in order and your everything ready to go and use us as resources. I'm probably not the right resource for the life science side, but we have people within our groups that are. And whether, as I said, there's about 16 angel groups that are part of Pennsylvania Network, and there's more in the area than that. But each of us have probably a life science specialty or a technology specialty or whatever it may be. And that's how we work together in our groups and so forth. So now, there's a group of 30 to 50 people that make up an angel group. You might have 10 or 12 people, might be generous sometimes, from the life science side. And those people sort of help filter the deals through and they'll help screen and help look at. And, I've invested in a couple of life science deals. I'm not a life science guy. I'm self-proclaimed. I'll know probably 85% of what your company does when you start talking about molecules and blood up there and pigs and stuff like that. You lost me. It's about the process. It's about the system and so forth. And what do you do? Like, how do you build that bridge? How do you look at that for the incubator system and so forth?
I mean, we're hitting on the money. That's a big part of it, and I think VC is part of this too. That's why we have the Hatch Bio Fund, and we want to start deploying that as soon as possible. We have a lot of deal flow, but I think the big part of this is the state. Like, let's just be honest. I think the new governor has definitely shown an interest, and I'm very hopeful that he'll make an investment. But I spent a lot of my time advocating for Pennsylvania, and look what Massachusetts did with MassBio. And I was fortunate enough to help provide some slides for the governor's new team coming in, and 3 of the slides of the 12 were MassBio, MassBio, MassBio. Like, don't recreate it. It's already been done. You look at what New York City's done. I think it was 18 or 19. They put $500 million in the city, $500 million for the state, and then they doubled down to 21. And I think I just read a statistic, like it's 55% more VC action from 21 to 22 in New York City because of their commitment. And if you look at the $1 billion, it was like $400 to nonprofits and universities, and then $400 million to creating this infrastructure and ecosystem. That's the type of effort it's going to take for Pennsylvania, because we have all the ingredients. We've got brilliant guys like Scott here. We're 4th in NIH, 5th in patents. The one thing that's lacking, and there's a reason why Alexandria doesn't do a lot of business in Pennsylvania. I think they only had 2 investment opportunities, and they won't build a building here. They built, I think, 1. I don't know, maybe Tim, you can clarify. But there's not a lot of state incentives. I'm dealing with one of our startups right now that is actually part of a Wistar technology. It's hepatitis B. They got 4 or 5 virtual members. They want to get a spot. They want to call it their home. And New Jersey and Maryland and Delaware are trying to, take them into their state. And I don't have the toolbox that the other states have. I mean, the amount of programs that New Jersey has incentive-wise, the amount in Maryland, for every dollar you spend in early stage life sciences, you get a 50% tax write-off. Like, we need our toolbox in Pennsylvania. We need the commitment. So there are some really good signs. The governor was out to our place a couple months ago. He wants to make an investment. I don't know if it's going to be $1 billion, but even if it's $100 million or two, we need something to continue to compete. So that I think is that we're looking at that. You need to have that money working with the state to create the incentives to draw companies here, and then the investment.
Lou, can you talk a little bit why that is when you talk to the politicians?
Yeah, it's Pennsylvania, unique problem. We've got some great activity in southeastern side and on the western side, and there's some stuff going on in Hershey and Scranton a little bit, but how are you going to convince a state senator in
Erie, Pennsylvania.
Erie, Pennsylvania, Center County, Lancaster, they need to make an investment in life sciences. They don't see the benefit from it. So our local electeds, they've all been super supportive. That's what they always tell me is the issue. We've got to convince all the others. Wendy, comment? Because Wendy probably taught me more about this than also. Wendy Thomas was a former state representative who was one of the biggest supporters of biotech in Harrisburg, and we've talked many times. I'd love to hear what you have to say from the inside.
Number one industry in the state of Pennsylvania is agriculture. So, they have their own committee in the House and the Senate. And, if I went around the room and asked you what's happening in the state right now, everybody knows what's happening in the federal government because that's all that's in our face. So Lou's done a great job and a lot of work. And, we have to just keep talking to the state. It's very, very encouraged. Our last governor, Governor Wolf, nothing about him, just wasn't his priority. Every governor has different priorities. Governor Shapiro has talked about life sciences on the campaign trail, which is a good step. But things like, Central Bucks Chamber of Commerce had all the electeds and the Secretary of DCD, Department of Economic Development, last Friday at a Delaware Valley University, and Lou was there. But if you guys see your chambers of commerce and see events, you go. They walk around, and let me tell you, if the secretary comes near you, you go up, you tell them that's life science is important to you, investing. But it's frustrating, but we have not given up. The good fight. Blue knows. I told them at one point, no one is allowed to mention the state of North Carolina to me ever, ever. And we are trying to get an angel investment bill passed, and they literally put me in charge of after COVID recovery on technology because I was talking to so many people about it, and they're like, call me like, okay, we did this, great, and then you go back, well, it wasn't really an angel investment bill, it wasn't my bill that they did. They put a grant program out, now everybody's got to apply and everybody gets half a penny. So we're working on it. We have a lot of good signs, but the state does need to say, and the state, I will tell you one other thing, the state of Pennsylvania doesn't want to pick winners and losers industry-wide. I'm not, that sounds good, right? You don't want your state to pick winners and losers. The bottom line is if Pennsylvania doesn't pick 3 industries that it wants to be a leader in, it's going to be a leader in 0. So again, if you have the chance to advocate for that, bioscience makes great. Agriculture, of course, and maybe a 3rd. But right now, it's very frustrating. And Lou does spend a lot of his time. I actually asked him to write a paper of what would this look like if it was perfect. We kept trying to get that to people. We're not asking for perfect, just a step in the right direction. But it is an important piece, and I've learned a lot more about the startups. All you have to do on the science side, then you got to learn on the business side, and you got to get equipment. Now you got to write grants to the state to get money from the state. It's a lot, and I've been a big fan, and I think the state will probably be a big fan of places like this that incubate, put companies together, like-minded people in a group, and the ability to fund that instead of picking, how would they pick a company? Which company would they invest in? If you see 15%, you invest in 1 or 2, the state is going to be virtually in the same position. So having places like this where companies can come together, collaborate, share equipment, work together, long-term, I think we believe that the state can invest in those things a little bit easier than individual companies.
I think we have to explain that the return on biotech and technology investments can be exponential. You could make some really good corn, but there's so much land, there's so much corn. But you can create a company that can have international impact and can provide many, many jobs. And it's a synergistic thing, and that's why it's addictive to start companies, because you're at the beginning of it. You can imagine that. That's why you invest early stage, because you could be picking the next big thing. But how big can it be? It could be enormous. Look at Spark, look at Carl June. I mean, what we create here can change the world, and that flows back into the health. And you just can't do that with really good corn. Not that. So we need to explain that. We're creating something from nothing.
Yeah, there's some other great, one sec. There's some other great resources in the state and in the area as well. The life, BioAdvance, life greenhouses, the life science greenhouses, Ben Franklin Technology Partners, and so forth. And they all provide great resources as well, and different resources. It's not an incubator per se. I mean, Ben Franklin Northeastern does have an incubator there, but it's just different. It's not a pure life science side. But there are some other good resources, and that's why you have to touch so many different, as I said, you might not know where the funding is going to come from. It might come from angels, it might come from venture, it might come from hedge fund, it might come from Ben Franklin, it might, there's all these different resources, and you might find an individual, you might find a couple C-suite that want to invest in you. So it's not an easy process, but a lot of the angel groups are in the suburbs, and they're not in Philly, and so it's a good way to network and to partner with them as well. So you never know. A lot of angels have exited a company, and maybe they're looking for their next opportunity as well, to be part of another organization, like Scott's done and other people have done as well. So, the question?
I actually want to chime in because my angle comes from the startup point of view, and I work in the SRE technology, and the company we're in the stage where actually VCs become critical. And this is a hard time I have a hard time convincing my company to locate in Philadelphia. It's a Cambridge, right? So it's all about ecosystem and funding, VC funding, basically. And for us, the success of biotech, because we are having a technology, we advance so quickly. So we're able to, within a year, have a platform, have an IND, we're going to human in a year. And then angel funding doesn't help. It's really the VC funding. Right? So I have a hard time. I'm a Philadelphian, and Lisa and I are a friend. I was trying to say, find a space in Philadelphia, but the problem is the SRA talents on top of VC funding. So this is a kind of technology comes back to the governor. If you think we have Anand, we have Moderna in Philadelphia, it's going to be a game changer. Now we only have Spark as an example, but there are many of those technologies are moving to Cambridge. Like the type of new things, RNA therapy, all different kind of things. They are the next generation, next wave. And even me, I've been trying very hard. I can't convince my team to stay here. So thinking about the activity we are using, if you see Anand, we see Moderna, they understand. And those start small, and those technology can bloom very quickly. Unlike small molecule takes 10, 20 years. Well, RNA technology doesn't. It takes 2 or 3 years to go to human. And those kind of major activities, if we don't support, we are going to lose.
I agree. I think you hit on it. Having pharma, if you go to Kimball Square, which is there, South San Francisco, we have GSK and Schuylkill Yards. We have Roche now. There's a couple other opportunities there, but we need half a dozen. And then we need VC. Well, VC's coming to our area. They haven't really planted a lot of flags. So, being up in Boston as much as I'm up there, you run into someone, they're from DC, you run into someone, they've commercialized 5 companies. It's really unbelievable what they've created up there. In Philadelphia, again, you don't have to recreate the wheel. Get the VC, get pharma to buy into it, get Moderna down here. It would be a game changer. I think we're probably, don't hold me to time, but we're talking 3 to 5, 6 years away at best. We've had Spark, and Heather, how many times have you heard Spark in the last 5 years? I love it. I love everything Jeff and those guys did, but we need probably 4 or 5 Sparks. For us to start moving the needle to a point where we start tracking even more.
Yeah, there are a lot of those activities, right? But it's very hard to get our voice heard here, and we keep going to Cambridge.
Questions? Comments?
How about workforce development? Lou? Talk about the need for the ability for incubators to just make workforce development programs that, you have obviously different levels of programs, high school, college, and postgraduate.
It's a shame Parviz isn't here.
Yeah.
He would have been great for talking about workforce because of Jim.
I think just many different levels. To what you said, part of our mission is to train tomorrow's workforce. And then you have a great nonprofit doing it on forensic. We have a high school program doing advanced chemistry and working with our incubators. It's an unbelievable experiential learning program. But doing more of that, doing GMP training, not just bench, doing all the services that we're going to need to really rise the river to get to where we need to go. But I think Wistar's doing a great job. There's so many opportunities that I think we probably need from the state level, or somebody needs to sit everyone together and do a coordinated effort of how we can really capitalize on this and create more partnerships so that we can get the synergy. And being in Philadelphia my whole life and seeing the poverty level, seeing the crime, this is the type of industry where this could be a game changer if we do outreach into the communities. And this is where my behavioral health social services experience. I used to love to create programs that you can change lives. And again, you don't have to be a biologist or but you can get GMP training. And we can also take displaced workers, we can get them into working. We're second in that JLL report today in CDMO and manufacturing next to San Francisco. That's something that will really start to stand out. So why not have the state or local, whoever it may be, get together and let's capitalize on that.
I wonder too, I think Drexel just announced a program and, cell therapy, and, how does a young company or startup company in the middle of nowhere get, Suburbs, bring in some of these internships and stuff like that? Would it make sense to have an umbrella group that would help us to, maybe have an agreement with Drexel, say any one of these 10 companies sign on, they've been vetted, they've been child abuse certified and all that stuff, and then there'd be a lower barrier to having someone come and do an internship at Oculus. Maybe they want to learn about AI antibodies, and it's really useful. Maybe they want to learn about RNA, but maybe that's actually something that could happen. To lower the barriers for students to come and actually learn, and do that on an umbrella basis, because we don't really have the bandwidth to negotiate with Drexel.
No, and there's so many silos in the city, and I think everything's there. It's just connecting the dots. Same thing, with what we're trying to do with the incubators. We have so many, how can we work even more together to create opportunities and to leverage each other? We have it. It's just, I think we're going to need, life sciences and PAs or trade organization, and they can help with this too, because that's what they're supposed to do is connect dots. So I think all of the opportunities are there. But I'll tell you, when I meet with the companies every year and I ask them about our high school program, we have summer programs in college, masters, the small companies, this is a godsend, this is great. Once the students are trained, they're doing real research and they're helping out my company. And I hate to say it, they're not that expensive, but they're getting a career, which is great because they're going, some of the kids, and this is from our program in high school, they're going to MIT, Stanford, all the Hopkins, yeah.
UNC, Cal Berkeley. Yeah, we have our first success story. One of the graduates of our chemistry partnership program. In the first year, she actually just, she won a fellowship as an undergrad. That includes her choice of an MD or a PhD to Purdue. And just last week, she told me that she's going to go instead to P&G, and she's going to forego the PhD MD because they give her such a great offer. It's Procter & Gamble.
Tim helped co-found the high school program too, so
Yeah.
a lot of credit.
I think that if there are ways of allowing that program to be spread, or just giving students more access, more students, I think that the region could benefit. That could directly help one of our main obstacles to success.
So do a devil's advocate question here. As a nation, we certainly lost semiconductor industry. A lot of associated electronics, for example, have migrated to lower cost countries. Maybe some of that's happening in software as well. So the question is, why or why not is this industry headed to be outside the US, and innovation and production and invention will be outside of the United States? So why or why not is the future of this industry going to be different than semiconductors?
We're the inventors.
I was gonna say that we have a couple IP attorneys in there. Our US IP laws, and the fact that we don't have any regulations on our drug pricing per se, really make this the go-to spot in the world for that type of technologies. And Lorenzo Pellegrino, who's our Hatch BioFund partner, managing partner, I was arguing with him about how we need a council like other countries that regulate. It's like, you do that, you're gonna destroy the whole industry. So I think there's an in-between, to regulate some things, we need to do a better job. But that's what Lorenzo told me about that. And I know with the IP, if I go to, we did a lot of work in China before the pandemic. And we have the technology out of Drexel with Likewise, that's not that anyone's here. And that may be commercial, and we are really having a hard time with attorneys and tightening things up to make sure that it doesn't disappear on us. So there's other things that internationally, there's advantages. A lot of CROs in Australia and Ireland and EU are great, and there's a lot of, that concerns me a bit, because a lot of the R&D is being funded out overseas. But when it comes to IP and commercializing, I just think we're number one right now, and we want to stay number one. I hope that, I don't know if you have.
Well, yeah, no, but just related to that, I mean, it's hard to incubate an idea. You need a great university to come up with it, and you need to actually have an infrastructure and an ecosystem in which that can be nurtured and incubated within the context of a burgeoning, startup society. And that doesn't happen anymore. You can make semiconductors here, then you can teach someone how to make them in another country, but you can't get this RNA and then just figure out how to use it in the middle of the desert somewhere. I mean, it requires an infrastructure, it requires nurturing, it requires preschool, daycare, elementary school, and that's really where the expertise is. Eventually it will become great and change the world. But we have people in this room who know how to make things that have never existed before, and which can change people's lives. And so that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about taking advantage or facilitating this and allowing this creativity to happen, because the people here and the people in this region know how to do that. You can't just take that away. So I love your devil's advocate question, because it means something. Like my daughter's trying to make it in the animation industry. She can look at a piece of paper and draw a picture that someone will buy. The scientists in this community can look at a lab bench, look at a hood, and look at a refrigerator, and they can create something that's never existed before that someone will buy. And that's the essence of what we have here. That's the essence of what we need to nurture, the ability to make something from nothing.
One of the challenges, if you're a CEO of a startup and you want to work with tech transfer and Philadelphia, so when you go for grants, right, you're going to do proof of concept. You need a real strong PI, and you need an address, okay? So in order to get just a simple address, it costs a lot of money, just so that you can file the paperwork, because they don't, when they look at your house on the paperwork for the grant, right, you can't just run it out of your garage. It helps to have a lab. The lab's like, well, if you want to have just a mailbox, it costs X. In our area, we have a ton of potential PIs that could work, because you have to work an X amount for the company in order to file for the grant. And I know that there's a ton of brain power in the city, but it's how do I find those people so that I can collaborate and file for grants to get the proof of concept on the tech transfer, right? We have all the pieces, but I think what you said was connecting them is difficult. I wish that we had better ways of, we have these societies, but it's difficult for someone who's used to working with scientists or tech transfer to find the right people so that I can put together a quick team so we can get the grants, so we can then get the space, do all the research. I'm just speaking, venting my challenges as a non-scientist CEO who loves this area, who wants to be more, but it's just difficult sometimes to find the people, getting the space. This is a big, beautiful space. And I'm sure that once we got the grant, we could fill it really quickly. But it's just, those are some of the things that, from a really small micro perspective, when I'm first starting a company with a really cool technology that I licensed from a hospital or from a university, those are some of the big things, and I just don't know how we can figure out a way to bring them together. I mean, there's these meetings, but there are literally tons of brain power out there in the area, maybe retired scientists that maybe could be a PI, things like that. I know that sounds sort of from just a really basic level, those are some of the things people like me are struggling with to do.
Yeah, but you gotta put a stake in the ground, but we rented Alchemstone, our first bench from him, $700 a month. Tips, everything, everything was right there, address, and people helping with SBIRs, and, they're actually, it's just one brick at a time, but actually if you just, like, particularly collaborating with PA Bio, we just had a community all of a sudden. And that's a really valuable
Yeah, I mean, I think.
starting point, and I think that's unique in biotech, $700 a month for a bench.
Yeah, well, the pricing between the suburbs and the city development team, it's almost 3 times what they would come to. And we're very similar to BioLabs, Innovations and Science Center. I mean, for $700 a bench is really a really good price. But back to your question, I mean, there's ways of connecting. You can go to any of the incubators. I think we all have programs that connect people, and we have residents and all kinds of different scientific consultants. We offer a membership where you just get a mailbox, or there's sometimes if we really like the company, and again, we're nonprofit, we'll write the letter, and if you get the grant, we'll give you the space. Like that's one way of doing it. And then like next to you is Caitlin, do recruit people. So she brings people in from around the world, and you have all the people in this room that could probably connect and help out with a lot of those dots.
It's being like a member of BioStrategy, or I mean, these type of events and networking and so forth as well. But
Like Mike Daly, he never had a lab, did he? Were there Genrex?
Get a mailbox.
Had a mailbox, and when the FDA would come to PA Biotech, right, he would have that as a background.
That show, yeah.
There is a Philly vibe to biotech too. It's very friendly. I mean, I lived in Boston for many years. There, everyone has a bigger boat than the next. But I mean, here people will answer any question you ask them. It really is a Philly spirit, and that means a lot. Even the fact that you've done this thing, this is a great coming together. It's just creating energy in the community.
It's not like the Philly attitude in school.
Well, nobody bought batteries, right?
I think Mike's a good example, because Mike, if I understand correctly, he bought the IP, he used all outside sources, he used biotech as his mailing address, he had his FDA meetings at the Biotech Center, and he exited for well over $100 million, correct? Yeah.
You don't want to count pennies, but I mean, yeah, that's one way. He took a technology from Japan, licensed it, and found, I mean, he was one of the best examples of an entrepreneur who knew the price points, was going to undercut the competition, and did that up. So yeah, those are real classic examples.
any other success stories that you guys want to talk about?
I feel like it's becoming commercial for the KBC, so,
It's a model. It's good. It's fair.
Yeah.
Just talk.
Hungdo is another good story.
Yes, yeah, that was a $100 million, he was there for 2 years. Beer was a $700 million, about $690 million. Arbutus is in the room, you guys started with what, people?
Yeah, 4.
Probably trade, how many, over 100 now?
Oh, yeah, 3.
It's been done.
Yeah, so I mean, we've had our share, and again, a lot of our, again, the suburb advantage, we had all that talent, we knew how to do it, you and Pat and the team built it, and I think that gave them a real big advantage to really move things ahead. I mean, you guys are public with 2 years.
Yeah, it's a little different situation, but it's a little,
Yeah.
if it merger, not a IPO process, but.
So yeah, I think there's some examples, and I know the city, there's some, with Capstan we have at B Labs, they just did a $160 million raise. Community was just bought out by Kite, which is owned by Gilead. That's in our B Labs facility, and we have Catherine House started AskBio, she just moved on, but they have a large footprint at B Labs. So Charisma. Again, I feel blessed because a lot of the companies at B Labs have investors from San Francisco, Boston, and New York, and have hundreds of millions of dollars, to work with and to move forward. And they're definitely different from Doylestown. They're a little bit more mature. They're pretty clinical. But I guarantee, and that 15 companies there, 3 or 4 of them are going to do really well.
You should mention too, Lankenau, that's
Yeah,
in the suburbs.
we have a lab there.
There's a actually hybrid academic facility there that's run by George Prendergast, and they have very aggressive, thoughtful incubator model. That's actually where I started Immunome. So I had my lab in one side of the room and then Immunome on the other side, and we put green Immunome stickers on everything they bought. And I mean, innovative models of facilitating commercialization by reducing the infrastructure upfront costs for starting your company with the university technology. It's really novel model. But I think that's what we really need to do. We really need to get a molecule or a concept to a value inflection point before we start spending money. I think you should spend money on commercializing something that works rather than using a platform to find something that you might want to commercialize if it works, right? So we can move the value chain forward. So that's one of the things that happened for Immunome at Lankenau. I would like to say that's a pretty good facility too.
So, the title of the talk today was that there is a secret of life sciences in the suburbs. So you've sort of proven the existence there, right? There are successful startups that have really done quite well in the suburbs. And so what are the prejudices that might be there that are really easily dispelled? And one thing I'm curious about, the suburbs are spread out. The city has a high density of everything, infrastructure, people, et cetera, universities. Do you think that with, in particular, what we've just been through over the last couple of years, where hybrid work, obviously it doesn't work for the laboratory piece, but just generally the way that organizations have had to cope with lockdowns, people staying at home, working virtually, might play to some of the strengths of the suburbs, whereby people don't necessarily feel that having that high density is a prerequisite for successful collaboration.
And I never really thought of that. I do know when B Labs was being built, it was during the heart of the pandemic. So it was a very, very difficult time. At PABC, we were central, but it was a ghost town outside of the labs. And I still feel to this day, we used to have 400 people in the park. You couldn't find a parking lot. Now everybody, including our nonprofits, it's mandatory. You can work from home for 2 days. And I personally miss the collaboration and being able to walk down the hall and get in touch with somebody right away rather than sending an email. And I think I know we're not back from it. So that is, not the suburbs or the city. I know in the city, obviously when the pandemic hit and with mass transit and still, I don't know who takes the train or Amtrak. It's nowhere near where it was before the pandemic. I still drive into the city because where I get on the Lansdale, the trains are now once an hour instead of every 20 minutes. And if they're late, you have to wait a full hour. So an Amtrak is a half hour to 45 minutes. So there's still some pandemic issues we're dealing with. And I do think both areas were impacted by it. The city, again, we weren't open during the heart of it. But as you know, even when I was looking for a place to eat, especially on my side of the river, I had to go up the Penn or walk down to Rittenhouse and further because we had no restaurants where we lived.
There's a Chick-fil-A right over there.
I do think with some of the we've seen it with the early stage companies where a CFO can be anywhere, and maybe not some of the essential people from a lab perspective, but some of the ancillary, whether it's a advisor or other people that you might say, okay, they were part of they had to be there all the time before. Now they can be a little bit more virtual as well. So we've seen that a little bit more, I think, with some of the startups, not necessarily just in the life science side, but in technology, I think it's happening more because maybe you just need a computer, but the lab side might be a little different. But we do see it a little bit more, and it's a little bit more accepted. I would say before it wasn't as accepted as well when you're talking to companies about investment and about other stages that they're at, about you want your team to be together and stuff like that, but now it's like, all right, I guess you're all over the place. So.
I don't know if this is exactly a secret about the suburbs, but if you are an educated person and you went to Penn or Jefferson or Temple or any of those great schools, and you graduated or you're on faculty or clinical staff, eventually your kids are going to have to go to school. And I'm a city mouse, but eventually my kid had to go to school. And there's only so many great private schools in the city, and when you're looking at houses and you're like, oh, the cost of a house and the cost of private school, well, I can sell the house, I can't sell the private school. I mean, eventually, I mean, one of the secrets, this isn't a secret about the suburbs, is, you know, kid can go to a good school, and if you have multiple kids, they can all go to a good school, and they can go to the same good school, and it isn't a schlep every day. You know, like, I mean, this is just practical logic. Obviously, this isn't a secret, but I mean, you know, and that got very, very difficult, I think, especially during the pandemic. I mean, especially when we were on Zoom, it's like, well, like, why am I going to send my kid to a private school on Zoom if you know, I mean, and presuming that that's the choice people make. I think there's a lot of very, you know, serious choices that go into school, but the city is hurting for schools. And if you're in the city, you have to be in a really tight corridor to send your kids to, you know, a school that isn't underperforming, and which is horrible. I mean, that is something the city should be absolutely, completely, and totally embarrassed about. And it's an absolute shame, and it isn't okay. And but it is the reality, and that actually forced me out of the city, and I think it's forced a lot of great people out of the city, and that's, you know, not so much a secret, and I think that that's going to push a lot of great resources.
I think you're 100% right. It's the traffic, the wage tax, the parking, all that. So that's the problem of trying to get the scientists from Doylestown down to, they don't want to go into the city. And then the opposite is the people at B Labs, everything is there. Like, they going out to Doylestown is like going out to Albany. Like, they don't.
Right, right.
You know, it's something we have to. Yes.
I do think one of the contributions, though, is that, you know, I mean, we have to be honest, we all went through a worldwide Trump. You know,
Yeah,
COVID was
yeah.
highly destabilizing, and I think, I can't speak for other people, but, you know, I kind of feel like I just want to lower the amount of crap I have to deal with every day. You know, and, you know, if my commute's 15 minutes less, or if, you know, I can actually have a place for my car to be when I get there, you know, and then also really, really thinking about the intense pressure cooker of a discovery-based business, you know, because I'm kind of used to it, but, you know, we have a new group in there, and, you know, we have to make sure that they're able to handle the stresses of innovating under pressure. And so we need to reduce the pressure in any way we can. And so, like, that's the main reason we moved out of your guys, because our chief scientist had too far to go, you know, and it wasn't much better for me, but it allowed him to function. So we really have to recognize, you know, we are flesh and blood, and we are, you know, recovering from a global trauma, and we need to be kind to ourselves. And it's easier to be kind to somebody when they're in a quiet laboratory, you know, when there are people that, you know, that they can talk to, and, you know, it's part of nurturing the spirit to get back to where you need to go.
Any last comments?
Thank you for great questions, and I like it, very interactive. Thank you.
I want to thank the panel again. We still have more food, some more tours. If somebody hasn't had a chance to have a tour, Lou and KJ will be happy to take you. I have to apologize for something. I neglected to bring up that Harvey's was unable to come. He is at the Jefferson Institute for Bioprocessing in Springhouse. Another secret of the suburbs, I think. Heather chimed in there for a moment about that, but he had something come up and was unable to join the panel. And again, if I don't get a chance to speak with any of you individually, I want to thank you for coming out. Certainly, I hope that some of you will end up here or someplace else out in the suburbs. And anyway, I wish you a fine evening. And again, please, we have lots of food and drink, so dig in. Thank you.